Okay, welcome back to Race in America. This week I want to start with our textbook, Getting Real on Race, which looks like this. This is the second edition. I hope you all have the same edition. You can see it's an edited piece, Stephanie McClure and Chelsea Harris. What I'd like you to do is I'd like you to read Essay 3. For me, in the second edition, that is on the power of language. And the titles you'll see are things that typically will come up, like Native American, Indian, Asian, Oriental, Latino, Hispanic, who cares, right? And those are sort of some of the things that we see out there in discussions regarding race. But really, what this is about is the power of self determination and language, right? So, in that vein, I'd like you to read that chapter, and then I have posted in week 4 a folder in our Blackboard, 2 videos. They're very, very short excerpts of James Baldwin, who, if you don't know who he was, you should. There are a number of reasons why a lot of people don't know who he was. And so I'm going to give you a little bit of biographical detail about who he was and sort of what he means to civil rights and the liberation movement for African Americans. First, he was born in Harlem, and he spent all of his adolescence and grew up there. But because he was black and he wanted to get out of the ghetto, right, he decided that he did not want to be in America anymore and he wanted to go anywhere else. So he ended up in France, which he does mention in the second video that I'd like you to watch. He was also gay. And so he was being discriminated on 2 fronts, right? And so life was very dangerous for him. And he is less considered during the civil rights movement than Malcolm X and Dr. King because, quite frankly, he left, right? But he is an author, a screenwriter. He was incredibly intelligent, and he had a lot to say and was very, very interested in race relations in the United States, even though he had absconded to France. As he returned back, right, he had really a lot more attention drawn to him because all the other civil rights leaders were brutally murdered or assassinated, right? So he was one of the last men standing that were some of the older guys that really ushered in this new era of civil rights legislation and self-determination and things like that. Now, the excerpts that we have here that I have is on YouTube. You'll just click right on them. They'll link you up to YouTube. It should open in another window. Those are from a longer work called I Am Not Your Negro, which if you have Amazon Prime, then I believe it's still free. I know it was for a while, nothing's free, but included with Amazon Prime. If not, and you'd like to buy it or rent it, that's also okay too. Unfortunately, I can't provide a copy virtually for you guys. So, and you don't have to, but it's something that I would encourage if this interests you. And he was a very charismatic guy. He did not mince words, as you'll see. He was very close with Malcolm X, and but was not Muslim. And it just had a lot of very interesting things to say. We will look at a few of the pieces that he's written throughout the semester. But right now, I just want you to get an idea of who he was because he's really important when it comes to discussions about race and often gets overlooked, right? So, what I'd like you to do is start by reading Essay 3. And it's important as sort of a building block because it looks at sort of a more contemporary idea of how political correctness has created problems with how we label people and what we think is okay to say and not say. And just as an example, my mother and her husband have what they call guest workers, and they're Mexican. They're from north of Mexico City, and they are great workers. And my mom is even brown too. She's brown. She's native, so she would always refer to them as our Hispanics. And I remember asking her, I said, "Mom, why are you calling them that?" And she's like, "Well, I'm just trying to be, sensitive. I don't want to be, racist or prejudiced." And I said, "Mom, what you're doing is racist. They're Mexican. Call them Mexican." And she goes, "Well, I didn't want to be offensive." And I said, "It's offensive to not call them Mexican when they have no reason to not be proud to be Mexican." And all of a sudden, I just saw it like click for her, and she goes, "Oh, I see," right? So that has to do with what this chapter is about. Um, it goes a little bit more in depth in sort of labels, like the transitioning from colored persons to, if you think about it, you know, if you say today that person is colored, that's not going to be politically correct. But person of color is. Now, that's just a reversal of the same exact term, right? So is it better, right? Those are questions that we should ask ourselves, right? And how do we go about this? Now, James Baldwin would say, "I'm none of those things, I'm a man," right? And so that's why I want you to get just a little bit of an idea of sort of where he was coming from, and also, a little bit of basis of how language shapes our understanding of race, right? Um, we're always communicating. We can't not be communicating, right? Whether it's verbally or non-verbally. And the ways in which we communicate about race have serious negative and, in some cases, positive impacts on racial relations, right? And so that's something that requires further investigation. And so our author, I believe, for this chapter does a good job. It's a very short chapter, right? So they're not going to be able to cover everything in it, but it does give you a little bit of a basis on moving forward. Now, later this week, I want to give a little bit of information on trying to select a topic. That'll be sometime later this week. But over the next couple of weeks, I want you to be thinking about a topic that involves some form of race or racism or anything like that tailored to this course that you can investigate and do some research on. But with that, I'm going to let you guys go. I hope you guys are staying warm. It is absolutely terrible in Kansas right now. So if you're here, you know what I'm talking about. If you're not, lucky you. But we're turning the corner. We only have a few more weeks left of winter, hopefully. And hopefully you guys are staying safe and are doing well and being healthy. And with that, I'm going to let you guys go. And if you have questions or comments or want to talk about the reading or these short excerpts or something like that of these videos, then please send me an email. I'm more than happy to set up a Zoom and speak with you. All right, guys, I'll see you later.